Hey everybody, this is the football game, and as you can probably guess, yes, no, this is not American football. This is, well, what we would call soccer, but what the rest of the world calls football. I always wonder about that. But and you know what? I do catch myself saying, oh, I'm watching American football this weekend. I don't know if I'm just trying to be all inclusive or whatever. But I mean, I do have friends after basically after getting into this hobby. I've made friends from across the pond, as they say, and when I've talked to them and using their vernacular and stuff like that, when I mention football, like we've had some confusing discussions. So it's kind of like the fallback for me. I'll say, well, yeah, I'm watching American football this weekend. And people look at me like, yeah, I mean, football, yeah, woohoo! But regardless, this is a game where each person is going to be taking on as being a manager of a club. Well, actually, more like an owner, because the manager can actually be fired, and then you can rehire a new one. So you're like the owner of a football club, and you are trying to make sure that they have the best possible season. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you win the championship. You just want to make sure that you exceed the expectations that have been put forth for your club and the direction that they have. So that might be a little confusing, but let me show you how the game is played. That should come to fruition and understanding when I do that. And then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, cool. This is the football game, so let's learn how to play. All right, so each player is going to get one of these boards here. This is a player board. That's going to be your team. You have a manager, which is this guy. You have your starting 4 players, and then you have people in your reserves. To begin with, you get dealt 2 managers. You pick which one you want. Each manager is going to have some starting abilities that just tell you how much money you get. You have $8 million, and how many cards you get. You get 7 tactics cards. It also gives you a little bonus. Like this guy, he helps when you're trying to resolve injuries. He'll give you a bonus on your roll to resolve those, so the person can come back and play if they get hurt. I'll talk more about injuries and the actual matches that you'll be having when we get a little further along. Alright, each one of these slots, like here, this has to be a defender, so you have to have a defender card in there. These midfielders, like this is a midfielder or a defender, this is a midfielder or attacker, and this final one over here is an attacker. So occasionally, so like if I wanted to, I could replace this attacker here, and I could put them into that location there. You'll move these things around and have substitutions, and you're going to have players get injured or get knocked out of matches, and then you're going to have to like place your backups in there. Also, you can hire new players that are over in this row, and there's this big giant stack of footballers that are in that that will be replaced in that row. So you can always be trying to improve your team. The number that's in the top left, basically when they score goals, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, they'll score the points that are in the top left of the board. And your goal in the game is to, basically this is the blue team, your goal is to keep climbing this level up here. And hopefully like get higher up with your matches. When you score lots of points, you'll get higher up and hopefully get to this champions level, because at the end of the scoring rounds, which is end of round 2, end of round 4, and the end of the game, you'll gain victory points. And you can see the victory points located here as far as the different levels. Now here's the cool thing, and like I don't completely understand football, or as my kids call it, soccer, because they play soccer. So I'm not maybe the most up to date as far as this stuff goes, but I worked with a gentleman who was from England, and he was a very, very big fan of football, and he talked a lot about it. But there's different leagues and different levels of championship, and like as far as, and I guess I don't want to get too far into this, but I guess like in football, if you don't play well enough, you get like sent to like a minor league or something like that, and so you want to try to avoid those things, and like that's the relegation zone and what have you. But so you total up your starters. So I have 12. I have 15 You start up with the people that are playing for you, and then what you do is you look at your squad strength, and then you take the card that has it, and so then like it even says here, welcome. We may not be the strongest team. We expect you to steer well clear of relegation. We believe that a few quality signings we could push into the upper half of the table, and so if you manage to get further up, you can score victory points. Now, in comparison. To if your squad strength is high, like so you have a 22 or higher, like you can see the victory points are different. Like you only get 7. You're expected, to basically as the really really good club, you're expected to play well and you're expected to do really well. So depending upon the ability of your team, you'll get one of these cards, and then that will determine how what's the expectation of you. And also, like if you decide you don't like your manager, you have the ability, you can sack your manager once this season if your club is at or below bottom 6, and so bottom 6 is right there. And then in comparison, here it's the Class A club. It's like you can sack your manager once this season if your club is below upper mid table, and so that's like right there. So and sacking your manager is something you might do because it'll give you a replenish your cards, and it'll give you an extra ability, and so like maybe the one that you have just isn't working out for you. So once you get your team set up, each person will have what's called their phase. And then at the end of each person's phase, you will do your matching. And so during the phase, like you have a pre-match phase where, I apologize, that's before. The first thing you're going to do as each player is that during before the opening phase comes up, you determine the first player. The first player will at the very beginning of the game is given this particular token. And that doesn't change. The first player will remain the first player for the rest of the game, but they do get to have that cool little trophy. And I guess technically you hand that trophy out to whoever ends up winning the game. So during the pre-match phase, only the person that's their phase. This is we're going. What you're going to do is you're going to resolve injuries. Now, during matches, players can get injured, and so then they're going to end up over in this injury area. And they get injured, and when they do get injured, you draw a card, like so. So this one says, they have a broken arm. And so, if this guy was injured, you'd place that in the injured footballers over there. And then this is the injury die. You roll this die, and if you can, meet or beat the roll, they come back from the injury. So roll. I got a 4. That would mean that this guy would come back. And also remember, I get a +1 because of my manager, and so then he'd be back in my availables that I'd have. Now, if you fail that roll, you have these little clips here that you clip onto the injured guy, and that basically says you automatically get a +1 the next time. So they've been given some time to heal. So that is how the injuries work out. And I'll explain how you possibly get injured when we get a little further into the game and into the matches. If you have any of your players in the unavailable area because they got knocked up, is what it's called, or knocked, basically they get, maybe knocked out of a game because of, a bad hard tackle or what have you, or maybe they got knocked in the head or something like that, they'll be in this area. They aren't injured though. They get to come back and you'll be available to you. And then you are able, and everybody can do that. They can move their team around. They can figure out which players they want to have starting and what have you. And a lot of times, the color of the background of the player does matter. You'll get tactics cards that will say that these particular players you get a bonus and things like that. So you might swap people out. You might not always take the person that has the highest scoring. But also, like I said, everybody can move them around. But the person that's actually their phase, they get to buy, or they can buy and sell players. If you decide to sell a player, it's worth whatever the silver number is. So this Imperious midfielder would be worth 8 million if I sold him. And then if this guy was over here and I wanted to purchase him, he'd cost 13 million if I wanted to buy. And then you can, if you want, spend $1 million. Like if you don't like the options that are over here, you can spend $1 million to get rid of all 5 of these guys. So we just go ahead and then you discard them. And then we'll go ahead and get 5 new footballers. Maybe you're looking for somebody that can replace what you have. And so here we have a midfielder that's a 5 and it's a magician. That'd be good. And if you can get that guy, and then or maybe you're just looking for somebody with like a yellow, so you can have more colors available to you, with your players. But you can spend that, and you only did that once, though. You can't just keep doing it over and over again until you get that. So after you've done all of that, and also you'll sometimes, and I should show these, you start with a hand of tactics cards, depending upon, it actually says, pre-match, you can put these on, so you have these different effects that you can have, and you can target, and sometimes you don't have to target, you target one footballer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your footballer you're targeting. You could target other people's players as well. But here's target a first team footballer. If that footballer scores during the next match day, place a good form marker on them. Otherwise, place a poor form marker on them. And basically, those are these +1 and -1s, and it just gives them a bonus of +1, -1. If you get a poor form on one of your characters, they're basically going to perform at a -1. They're only going to be worth a 3. The way you get rid of a poor form, sometimes you'll have cards that'll do it, but usually the only way you can do it is if you can get a good form marker on them, and that gets rid of anything. And the opposite is true. If you have a good form, but then they get a negative form, you remove that. So it kind of just waffles back and forth, and that's how those work. But so if you want to, you can go ahead and use any pre-match cards you wish, and play those tactics cards during that phase. Once the phasing has been completed, in clockwise order, everybody sets their starting team, and so then once you decided who's going to play, that is locked into place, and you're done. And now, after that's done, you can play the pre-match stuff as well. So that one that says affect a first team player. That's once it's locked in, you play that card. Maybe you're going to hope that person doesn't score and they get a poor form on them. And so then once it's locked, the players aren't able to, the other opponents can't move that player out. Oh, you're going to play that card on my guy? Well, no, I'm going to get rid of him. You can't do that. Once they're locked in, they're locked in. So now that part's fun, and you kind of are just setting yourself up and whatever. But now the real fun of the game happens when you go into the match day. And so when the match happens, you start with the phasing player, the person that it's their turn, and going in clockwise order. They're going to roll the match dice, and so I'm just going to roll these 2 and see what I get here. And what I'm hoping is I'm going to hope that I roll black, blue, and red, and hopefully black, because if I roll those colors, what happens then is that those particular players are going to score. But that means for everybody as well. So everybody else is going to look at the people they started, and they're going to hope that I roll those colors. So let's see what I get here. All right, cool. That's really good for me, because I rolled a black and a red. And so I'm going to go 4, 8, 11 points. I'm going to score 11. Now you can look right over here, and you can see that on a 10 to 11, I'm going to go up 1. So I'm going to increase on this chart by 1, and if I can maintain that through the second round, you can see, or even get higher, being on the upper middle table during round 2, that's going to be worth 5 points for me if I can pull that off. But hopefully I can get even higher. Now, a couple of things about this table. Once you get up into this level, the way I guess football works is that you have to keep winning in order to succeed, and so you are automatically going to go down 1 in the top 3. You're automatically going to go down 1 unless you keep winning. So you've got to make sure that you get to maintain. You have to get that 10 through 13 to actually increase. You're going to have to get to that 14 through 19 or the 20 plus to go up. Now the reverse is true if you're on the bottom 3. If you're on the bottom 3, you basically just have to stop losing. And so that's where that whole, 0-0 tied action happens or what have you. And so, as long as, like, you're automatically getting a bonus one. So if you're down here, you're going to get one, unless you get really horrible and you go to, like, down 2 in this situation. But so, like, you're on getting one, but if, like, you got 10 through 13, you get another one as well. So, it's one of those things where, if you're successful, you have to make sure you're maintaining that success and continuing on. Now, here is where more tactics cards can come into play. So, you can see here, this one doesn't really help me much. If your blue or yellow footballers score, I can add +2. That isn't going to help me. However, run them ragged. For each of your scoring midfielders, add +3 to your score. So right now, I had this midfielder score, and I had, and this guy, my defender, and my battering ram forward score. And so I have a total of 11, but I can play this card, and I can increase it to 14, and that's going to get me to the +2 if I play that card. And I can combine these with whatever I want. So now, if I wanted to, like if I can somehow get to like 20, so right now, as I said, I'm at 14, I could play this because one of my red footballers scores, and so like I didn't have a yellow and red score, so I get the +5, but I can put that for a +2, and that would get me to 16. Let me see if I can go any further. And then I can get, I don't think I'm able to do it, because I only can get another +2 and another +3 per scoring attacker, and I only have one scoring attacker. So I could get another +5, that would get me to 19, so then I'd be stuck at 19 and only get +2. But I can play that card, and I can actually get the +2, and then so I can adjust. So I'm in the upper table now, and of course in the upper table, if we look at the card, that means that if I can maintain that, it's going to be worth 6 points at the end of round 2. So you play tactics cards, you just get rid of them. You do get to collect more later, but one of the things you can do during the pre-match phase is that you can discard all of the tactics cards you have, and then you can draw that many tactics cards +1 from the deck. And the maximum cards you can have at any one time, however, is 8. So you would have to discard if you had 8. For some reason, you had 8 cards, you discarded, you draw 9, you have to discard down to 8. So after that is done, after everybody scored and everybody realizes like where they're going to be on that particular table, now the person whose phase it is has to resolve the possibility of events, the possibility of getting injured, and the possibility of getting knocked. And so what happens is these dice, they have a green, which is a knock, a red, which is an injury, and a black, which is an event. And what they're going to do is they're going to roll both these dice, and they're going to see if any of these people get affected. So we're going to roll, and okay, I managed to avoid any possible injuries, so I don't have to do that. But the lowest number goes first, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to resolve an event that affects our squad slot 1. So we're going to draw a card here, and we're going to have an event, and it's like, place 1 good form marker on the footballer in the affected squad slot. So it's something good. It's like a run of form. He did really good. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to be able to place that on there, and obviously that's good. I'm happy about that. However, I apologize. That number 4 is the event. I misread that. Number 4 is the event. So my battering ram forward now would be considered a 4 going forward. However, I have a knock onto this guy, and so then he is going to go, and he is considered to go, and he's going to land in that, like the unavailable spot. Now you might say, well, so what's the big deal as far as that goes? So he's knocked. I mean, you're going to get him back. However, remember, I don't get to have a phasing turn until it gets all the way around back to me again, and that's when you get to take the people that have been knocked and you get to put them over there. And if you look, I don't have any defenders. I don't have anybody available that can actually take that spot. So you have the equivalent of like a nobody in that spot. But unfortunately, basically, I'm going to be hoping that people are going to be rolling blue, red, or black on their rolls, because that's my only shot that I'm going to have at being able to have these matches and continue to maintain or increase on my level. So that's obviously not a good thing, and something that I have to work on. So as I said, you don't score any points until the end of round 2. And then the end of round 4 and the end of round 6, you'll score all of those points. At the halfway through the game, you'll notice this is the little marker here. Halfway through the game, you do get additional tactics cards equal to their manager's tactics value, and you receive millions equal to your manager's budget. And you will refresh this transfer market, but then you just continue playing, of course, and continue moving forward. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points, obviously, is going to be the person that ran the best campaign, if you will. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the person that ends up the champion. Obviously, if you get, a lot of the points, like if you end up with like 30 points or whatever, but if you were like in the A group, people are expecting that. So if you get the 30 points in that situation, you may, if you played really well and you were like one of like the Class C or Class D clubs, but you still managed to, maintain in these high levels, you're getting those points or getting equivalent points a great deal for not doing quite as well. So I really like that portion of it, that like not necessarily the best team's always going to win. You might end up being the champion technically because your marker is all the way up to the top like so, but one of the scrappy, underrated clubs, like really surprised everybody, and they're considered to have been actually the best team out there this particular season, and that person will win the game. So there you go. That is what I mean. This is one of those games where when I got it, I was like, well, I'm not really big on the sport, but and as far as the theme goes, I wasn't really sure if it was something that I was going to like. But I thought that all the little parts, all the little pieces, all the cards, all of the dice play and the kind of take that card play that was involved really came together and made it for a very, very fun game. And I'll fully admit that maybe the theme wasn't exactly clicking with me the entire time, but I really, really enjoyed it. But let me talk more about that and some other thoughts I had there at the end of my conclusion. All right, thank you very much for taking the time to learn how to play the football game. I'll fully admit that, when I played this game, and as I mentioned this, the sport kind of eludes me a little bit. I tried playing soccer when I was younger, and man, there was just so much running. My kids play it and they love it, but they're young and they have fresh legs, and all I can see whenever I see people playing soccer and running football back and forth is like, oh man, that's a lot of running. And it kind of bewilders me a bit that people are able to have the stamina and have the ability to go out and do that and continue. And so I do respect a great deal the amount of physical ability that it takes to be successful and be good at this particular sport. I do find myself thinking, wow, this game's really fun. I mean, it is. It's just really fun. It's really fun being in charge of your team. It's really fun kind of moving the players around and hiring new players and and trying to and I really love the whole scoring mechanism of how bad the expectations are for your team going forward, and how well. And I should admit, there's one thing I forgot to mention, that when your team is in the low leagues, not the C League, but nothing happened, but in the D League, you actually start with less money and you have less tactics cards. So it does make it a little bit tough to crawl out of that hole, but that makes sense. And by the same result, the people in the A League and the B League, they actually get more resources. They get more cards, more money to allow themselves, and it makes sense too. I mean, if you're in the D League, you don't have a lot of sponsors. Maybe your owner isn't really rich. You have a situation where you just don't have the ability. There's a reason why you're in the D League. But if you're in the top level, you've got commercials and you've got people wanting your autograph and all those other things. So you have more access to more things. Another thing is all the stuff that goes on. This is a very Euro-ish game. It's got some hybrid things going on as far as the dice and what have you. But this is a very, very thematic Euro. Now, I did find myself saying, man, I wish they could make this game for American football, or make it for baseball, or a sport that I'm more akin to, and I probably adore it. But for what this was, like I said, I really just love the interplay between different players. I love watching the players getting ready to roll the dice to see, which one of my guys are going to score, which cards I can play to actually increase that, to get myself up that track, what I could do to actually put an end to the other players' good luck, if you will. And I enjoyed that portion of it. As I've said, I really enjoy games where I'm able to interact with the other players at the table instead of just kind of just doing my own thing and seeing if I do better than the other players at doing my own thing. And so, and this game has that. And I'll fully admit that, like, you know, I'm not gonna rush out and like get a subscription to, like, you know, some like football channel or whatever. But you know, it did make me, you know, interested in the whole aspect of the sport, and I probably will be more interested in checking that out next time I'm flicking through the channels and I find it and watching it for a little while. Just because of the fact that, like, you know, it's kind of opened my eyes a little bit. So, if you are a fan of soccer or football, I think this game is, and you are a board game enthusiast, then I really think you should look at this game, and I really think you should pick it up. I think you'd really, really enjoy it. I mean, it's one of those things where, like I said, it really takes really, really solid mechanisms and puts the theme of the sport right in there. And, I mean, if this is a game that was about, if, like, American football or Major League Baseball or something like that, I mean, I would tell every single one of my friends that you know, or my friends that like games and then like those sports, to go out and get this game immediately. You know, I mean, if you're just going to appreciate it for the mechanisms and what have you, I think you're really going to like it as well. But like I said, if you are a fan of soccer and you like this stuff, this is a must-own, in my opinion. So there you go. If you have any questions about the game, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.